What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Taurean Reloaded channel. If you are new, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Make sure to have that bell clicked and have your notifications set to all so you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video or go live. Also, be sure to have your notifications set to all on your mobile devices as well. Be sure to also like, comment, and share this content on your various social media platforms. Before I get started with this, I have to give a shout out to the amazing Lucas, because if he didn't do a video about this, I would have never known that this couple of videos that I'm going to show to you even existed. I wouldn't even know who this person is that I'm talking about in this video. But the person I'm going to be referring to is a woman by the name of Khiara Bridges, and she is a law professor at Berkeley in California. And keep in mind, I just did a video talking about my disdain of them trying to change the terminology of mother to birthing parent, and changing father to non-birthing parent, and changing maternity leave to parental leave, and all of that crazy nonsense. Now you have this woman, Khiara Bridges, like I said, who's a law professor at Berkeley, who, after you listen to this filth, you'll wonder how in the hell she even got her degree. I'm going to play this video for you and just listen to the rhetoric that comes out of her mouth. It's a couple of videos. This is the first one right here. Now, I don't know in which order these videos are in, but at this point, it really doesn't matter because it just goes from bad to worse with her. Now, check this out.
Lead lives that are filled with dignity and humanity.
And
that means being able
your way
to,
of thinking, that happens when more black babies are aborted.
I believe, I trust, I love black people with the capacity for pregnancy. I think they have agency, they have intelligence, they know what is best for themselves, and I would love to create the conditions under which they can live lives that are filled with dignity and humanity.
And do you think a baby that is delivered alive has value?
Yes.
Do you think that a baby that is not yet born has value?
I believe that a person with a capacity for pregnancy has value. They have intelligence. They have agency. They have
I'm talking about the baby.
And I'm talking about the person with the capacity for pregnancy.
You're not answering the question. I'm asking.
I'm answering a more interesting question to me.
Do you think that a baby that is not yet born, let's say the day before this mother delivers, do you think that baby has value?
I think that the person with the capacity for pregnancy has value, and they should have the ability to control what happens to their lives.
Well, and I just note you refuse to answer the question.
Okay, so y'all just heard it right there. Now, usually y'all know that I will stop and go when it comes to this, but I said I can't begin to wrap my mind around this. Now, one of the first things that I notice is this woman has a septum ring. You probably don't notice it. She has a septum ring. Whenever we see that septum ring, we already know what type of person this is. But not only that, she has two piercings. She has one in her nostril, and the septum ring that goes like the bull ring. That's basically what a septum ring is for those of you who don't know, but y'all should already know. Now, this man asked her about the well-being, does a baby, a newborn baby, have value? Notice the pause that she gave before she said yes. Like, he asked her specifically, does a newborn baby have value? And they're talking, he specifically is talking about black babies because he said black babies. He says, does a newborn baby have value? It took her about 5 seconds to say yes. Then he asked her, do you think a baby that's not born yet, or a woman that's pregnant, that is a fetus inside of the womb, does that fetus or does that baby that's growing inside of that womb have value? She was quick to come back and literally deflect against what he said, and said that the capacity of the woman who is pregnant has more value than the child she's carrying. That's what she said. And he said, I wasn't talking about the woman who's pregnant. I'm talking about the baby she's pregnant with. Does that child that's growing inside of her have value? And she went back and deflected again. Now, I'm not going to play the whole clip again, but I want to skip ahead to one particular part. And I don't know if y'all picked up on this, but I sure did. But I didn't want to stop. But let me go ahead and play this. I may be a little bit ahead or a little bit behind, but let me go ahead and play this part right here.
Has value?
I believe that a person with a capacity for pregnancy has value. They have intelligence. They have agency. They have
I'm talking about the baby.
And I'm talking about the person with the capacity for pregnancy.
You're not answering the question. I'm asking.
I'm answering a more interesting question to me.
She said, I'm answering a more interesting question to me. He didn't ask her a question in which she gave a response to, but she felt so entitled to say to this man asking her a specific question that your question or your line of question is not of interest to me. So I'm going to give you the response that I feel is interesting enough to me. Now, I want y'all to pay attention to this woman right here. Her facial expression told it all.
The baby.
Look at her eyes. She looked over to the side when Khiara Bridges gave that response and was like, did this bitch actually just say that out loud? She looked over wide-eyed like, is this bitch crazy? Is she crazy? That's like the response I think everybody gave watching this video. And she let it be known on this camera. She probably didn't even know she was in the frame though.
That is not.
And then look at how she looked back at her like, this woman is insane. Like this woman literally, this is saying something when you have PC people got way more common sense in this moment right here than the one black person that I can see sitting right here. This is why I said Khiara Bridges is an agent of chaos. Now bear with me because there's more that I have to show in a line of questioning that comes from another person that's not him. It, like I said, it just goes from bad to worse. But let me go ahead and pull that video up. Now here's a line of questioning that happened between Khiara Bridges and I think his name is Josh Hawley. That name Josh Hawley sounds familiar. Like I feel like I've heard that name before. But anyway, he gave her a line of questioning. Now I'm gonna go ahead and do the same thing that I did with this. I'm not gonna stop and go. I'm gonna let it pretty much play itself out, and you can hear what she has to say to him when he asks her certain questions.
Professor Bridges, you said several times you've used a phrase. I want to make sure I understand what you mean by it. You've referred to people with a capacity for pregnancy. Would that be women?
Many women, cis women, have the capacity for pregnancy. Many cis women do not have the capacity for pregnancy. There are also trans men who are capable of pregnancy, as well as non-binary people who are capable of pregnancy.
So this isn't really a women's rights issue.
We can recognize that this impacts women while also recognizing that it impacts other groups. Those things are not mutually exclusive, Senator Hawley.
Oh, so your view is that the core of this right then is about what?
So I want to recognize that your line of questioning is transphobic, and it opens up trans people to violence by not recognizing them.
Wow, you're saying that I'm opening up people to violence by asking whether or not women are the folks who can have pregnancies?
So I want to note that 1 out of 5 transgender persons have attempted suicide. So I think it's important
because of my line of questioning? So we can't talk about it?
Because denying that trans people exist and pretending not to know that they exist
I'm
is
denying that trans people exist by asking you if you're talking about women having pregnancies?
Do you believe that men can get pregnant?
No, I don't think women can get pregnant.
So you are denying that trans people exist?
And that leads to violence? Is this how you run your classroom? Are students allowed to question you?
Absolutely.
Or are they also treated like this, where
No,
they're told that they're opening up people to violence?
We have a good time in my class. You should join.
Oh, I bet.
You might learn a lot.
Wow, I would learn a lot. I've learned a lot just in this exchange.
Absolutely.
Extraordinary.
Yep.
Okay. So now you got this line of questioning coming from Josh Hawley's, and now looking at this definitely had to come after the first one because he's basically piggybacking off of the previous line of questioning because of the way he framed that first question. And he basically picked up what the other guy picked up from about the pregnancy and things of that nature. And she went into this whole tirade about, the capacity of pregnancy, and he was asking, do you believe, let me go back and play a little because there was a lot to ingest. Let me go back a little. I might have to do a stop and go with this one because this was a lot to take in.
And cis women have the capacity for pregnancy. Many cis women do not have the capacity for pregnancy.
So she's saying, listen, I hate that term, cis. I hate it. I do. That cis terminology, I hate it. You find that many people in the academy and they're advocates, and I don't know if she's in the academy or not, but she's definitely an advocate or an ally. They love to use that terminology. Be wary of the people that use that terminology. So be wary of her. She says that cis women, these are her words, can have the capacity to get pregnant, and there's also many that cannot. But the fact of the matter is they're still biologically born women. They're still women, whether they can get pregnant or not. Besides, it's more women in the world that can get pregnant than not. I'm very certain of that.
There are also trans men who are capable of pregnancy, as well as non-binary people who are capable of pregnancy.
So this is the part right here. She said trans men are capable of getting pregnant, and so are non-binary people. It's like people just want to go against science. If somebody is a trans man or identifies as a trans man, that means they were born biologically female. They have the XX chromosome that scientifically and biologically states female, which means that person can get pregnant even if they decide to go through with an operation that says, hey, I don't want to identify as a woman anymore. I want to identify as a man, but they still have the man part. If y'all remember, I did a video back in December. For those of you who were around at the time, I did a video back in December where I was talking about this. It was a married couple. One was born a man. The other one was born a woman, but they identified as a trans man because they went through the operation and all the types of stuff like that. And they got pregnant. And then they was talking about, oh, men can get pregnant. Oh, men can. I said, no, that's a biologically born woman, female, that just chooses to live their life now as a man. That's still a man. I mean, a woman, biologically. How they choose to identify is another story. But men cannot get pregnant. And then she went into the non-binary, someone who doesn't identify as a gender. But guess what? Biologically, they're still a female because they are still getting pregnant. It's like, this is why she is an agent of chaos. That's why if you look at the thumbnail, agent of chaos. That is what Khiara Bridges is. And notice notice how many times she bucked her eyes in this video too. Well, let me continue. I didn't expect to do a stop and go with this part, but I just had to, because this part right here was pretty much almost the meat of the whole thing. But there's one more thing I'm gonna have to show you, but that's gonna be in the form of an article.
So this isn't really a women's rights issue.
We can recognize that this impacts women while also recognizing that it impacts other groups. Those things are not mutually exclusive, Senator Hawley.
Oh, so your view is that the core of this right then is about what?
So I want to recognize that your line of questioning is transphobic.
Now listen to that. He was just saying, like, he was saying something about how this is like impacting women, and she comes back and said we can acknowledge how this impacts women and other groups and whatnot. And then he was like, oh, okay. And then she comes back with the typical, oh, I just want to tell you that your line of questioning is transphobic. That's her get out of jail card. That's her deflection card. Just say something is this and that phobic, and then I can, remove myself from any further slings and arrows. And then I can get the Academy on my side to throw slings and arrows his way, which is exactly what I'm going to talk about after this, after I analyze this little clip.
Opens up trans people to violence by not recognizing that.
Wow, you're saying that I'm opening up people to violence by...
See that? She said he's opening up trans people to violence. How is he doing that? He's just stating that, like, what you're saying makes no sense. He didn't come out of his mouth and say, oh, trans people, we're going to send people after you because of how you identify. He didn't say that. And she knows he didn't, but she's making it seem like it is. And that's a galvanizing tactic to get people to plant a seed into people's head. That's not something that is far from true.
By asking whether or not women are the folks who can have pregnancies?
So I want to note that 1 out of 5 transgender persons have attempted suicide. So I think it's important
because of my line of questioning? So we can't talk about it?
Because denying that trans people exist and pretending not to know that they exist.
I'm denying that trans people exist by...
He didn't say that trans people didn't exist. See how she's like putting words in his mouth? This is wild to me. Like, I feel like, what am I really listening to right now? This is like the Twilight Zone on steroids. He never said trans people didn't exist. He wasn't denying their existence or their right to exist. He was just saying, talking like literally asking her questions that she could not answer. Like did she bury herself into a hole? She buried herself into a hole that she couldn't get herself out of with logic. So now she has to throw deflection up there in order to dig herself out of the hole that she buried for herself. He never said anything that trans people were denied rights or denied their existence or denied their right to live or to exist, or however that she put it. But she's planting a seed. Like I said, when I get done with this part of this video, I'm going to show you just a little bit of an article that shows you exactly what I mean by that.
Asking you if you're talking about women having pregnancies.
Do you believe?
Now she's getting combative. Are you? Now she's getting combative.
Believe that men can get pregnant?
No, I don't think women can get
So
pregnant.
you're denying that trans people exist?
Listen to what she just said. So you're denying that men can get pregnant? And he's like, no, I know men can get pregnant. Oh, see, now you're denying that trans people exist. Oh my God. Y'all, this is some of the stuff that I have to go through when I be doing these videos. Y'all, when I have to analyze stuff like this. Be lucky and fortunate that you don't have to do this. I feel like I'm doing the Lord's work for y'all right now. Not to toot my own horn. But this is like difficult to get through. We only got like 19 more seconds left. And I have a feeling I must have to stop it like 2 more times before it's completely over. She just asked him, so you don't believe men can get pregnant? We know men can't get pregnant. Remember, I just talked about a trending topic that was on Twitter the other day talking about why can't men breastfeed? Because they can't. They cannot produce milk out of their chest. Keep in mind, this woman is a law professor at Berkeley. But then again, this is California we're talking about here, the so-called most liberal state. So I'm sure there's a lot of people that would agree with what she's saying. And there are, believe it or not, a lot of people that do agree with what she's saying.
And that leads to violence? Is this how you run your classroom? Are students allowed to question you?
Absolutely.
Or are they also treated like this, where they're told that they're opening up people to violence?
We have a good time in my class. You should join.
Oh, I bet.
You might learn a lot.
Wow,
I would not want to take her class.
would learn a lot. I've learned a lot just in this exchange.
Absolutely.
Extraordinary.
Yep.
Ms. Matsky.
Okay, so that's the end of that. Whew. My goodness. Did y'all... This woman is completely off her rocker. I don't know if they are just snatching people up out of insane asylums out in California to go and teach classes at universities and colleges. But I don't know from what field of nutcases did they pluck her from. I'm convinced that Khiara Bridges wasn't even born. I'm convinced she might have been created in a lab. She might have been hatched out of an egg. Or, I don't know, sent down from a UFO, pulled from the future and planted here like she's the damn T-800 from the Terminator. I don't know. But she's not giving human responses at all. Now, what I'm going to show you one last thing with this thing. And watch what I mean when I say how an agent of chaos can plant a seed and people will go along with it. Look at this right here. This is off of the website LGBTQnation.com. So, of course, they're going to align right up with everything that she says. But it's the reason I'm pulling it up. It says, law professor humiliates Josh Hawley during Senate committee hearing. They actually believe she humiliated him. If anything, she was a complete and utter embarrassment of herself. And you know what? I know I'm dealing with some sensible black women that watch my videos, and I know none of them are going to believe any of the filth that comes out of her mouth. Y'all are probably looking at this chick like, what the hell is she talking about? Listen, I feel the same way. And I'm a black man. Remember how I was saying in my video about the changing the terminology to birthing parent and all of that junk? This is a perfect example again of the pandering that a lot of people who are in the academy or advocates of the academy or allies to the academy do towards the academy for whatever reason. I don't know why. I don't know if it's for brownie points or if it's for funds or whatever the case may be, but it's very dangerous talking points. Like this woman started off with the first person where one of her biggest things that she said out of her mouth was when he asked her about the value of life that a baby inside of the womb, does that baby have a value of life? And she couldn't even, well, the first one was he asked, does a newborn have value of life? And she couldn't answer that with a simple yes. It took about 5 seconds to say yes. Then he asked her about, does the baby inside of the woman have a value of life? And she quickly came and deflected and started talking about the woman who was pregnant with the child. Basically, because it was like an abortion hearing. So she's one of those pro-choice women. And he specifically asked her about black babies, not any other baby, not any other race of babies. He said black babies. Like, if you go back and listen to it, that's the first words that came out of his mouth. So he was being specific with her because she's a black woman. Whatever child she pushes out of her womb, if she has any, and I hope with her line of thinking that she doesn't have any, so y'all be wary of her. Do not get her impregnated whatsoever. I don't even want her. They need to put a sign up on the clinic door. If she decides to go for artificial insemination, you're not allowed. Do not come in here. Like, plaster her picture all over the place. Do not let that woman in there. She does not need to bear children or have kids. But with her line of thinking, it would be, if she gets pregnant, it wouldn't be long before she makes a beeline to the Margaret Sanger clinic, if you know what I mean. So that was that. And then when she got with Josh Hawley, where I really had to break that down because that was a lot to take in just on just one viewing. I had to go back and look at that again. That's when she completely went off the rails. And this is the part they've been focusing on for the majority of the time, but they actually think that she humiliated him. Y'all, we got to be, as black people, we got to be wary about the enemy within. Remember I was telling you about the enemy within? She's definitely the enemy within. This woman is crazy. And what's scary is there are other women like her out there with that line of thinking, but she was just the one bold enough to go up on that hill in a Senate committee hearing and actually express her views about what she was talking about, which was just a bunch of babbling BS. And it's crazy too, because it almost makes me wonder if this woman has ever been pregnant, how many abortions has she had, if she's ever been pregnant. And like I said, pay attention to how many times she bucked her eyes when she was talking to more so this guy, Josh Hawley. Because I don't really see her really doing the bucking the eyes things with the first guy. But with this one, she definitely did. Sitting up there talking about, oh, so you don't believe men can get pregnant? And he was like, no, so then you believe trans don't exist. I'm laughing not because it's funny, because it's definitely not funny. I'm laughing because it's like, in 2022, this is where we are at. This is where we are at in 2022. It's a jungle out here, y'all. I forgot what 80s rock band that was back in the day that came out with that song called Welcome to the Jungle. But that's what that song literally came to mind in the last couple of minutes of me discussing this. It's sad. It really is. It's a sad state of affairs. And what makes it worse is that they trotted out a black woman to talk this nonsense. I would have gone in on this person even if they were of another group, if I was able to get a hold of it. But because this came from a black woman's mouth, it makes it worse. Because like I always say, you got to always talk about those who are within your group when they say stuff like this. And the thing is, I was going to kind of like dodge this one because I didn't want to deal with it. But then the more I kept seeing it and the more I kept hearing, I was like, okay, this woman right here, this thing, I'm going to say a thing because apparently I wouldn't even be surprised if she doesn't identify as a woman. She might identify as the shirt she's wearing or the septum ring in her nose. Who knows? But yeah, Khiara Bridges, Berkeley University or Berkeley College, whatever it's called. Y'all hold a massive L for having this woman on your payroll.